Raphael was 32 years old, a hospital IT technician with a steady, routine life. Calm and meticulous, he found comfort in the tangled world of cables and systems, a refuge from the chaos outside. That night, his shift at the city hospital seemed ordinary, only a handful of patients admitted. The cold corridors smelled faintly of disinfectant mixed with a metallic, almost anesthetic scent that Raphael knew well. The stillness around him felt like a strange embrace, an unspoken warning. While performing routine maintenance on the hospital's main generator system, his attention snapped to a peculiar warning blinking red on the monitor. The computer's cooling fan suddenly whirred louder, nearly drowning the hospital's eerie silence. Furrowing his brow, Raphael glanced towards the old hallway where room 13 used to be. He knew it had been demolished years ago. But in the reflection of the screen, something impossible appeared. The door of room 13 slowly creaked open, revealing a heavy darkness inside. Then everything shifted. A vision took hold, fast, intense, and terrifyingly vivid. Raphael saw it all unfold before his eyes, the hospital's generator failing, sparks flying, lights fading, machines that kept patients alive flickering off. Panic and chaos filled the air, alarms blaring faintly in the distance. Shadows stretched down the ancient corridor, like invisible fingers reaching toward the beds. Every face in the vision was etched with fear and impending doom. Raphael's throat tightened, adrenaline surged, as if he were trapped inside the tragedy before it even happened. The beep of the monitor yanked him back to reality. Raphael jolted awake, hands trembling over the keyboard. The hospital seemed normal, too normal, but he knew something was terribly wrong. The clock on the wall read midnight, the exact time from his vision. Silence pressed down, suffocating. He tried to convince himself it was just a nightmare, or stress playing tricks on him. But the feeling of being watched clung to him relentlessly. The thought echoed in his mind, if I don't act, this disaster will happen. Without hesitation, Raphael stood up, determination pressing heavily on his chest. His footsteps echoed unnaturally loud in the hallway as he made his way to the generator room. Nearing the door, a cold breeze whispered across his neck, as if a silent warning brushed past. Then, in the reflection of the glass door, he caught sight of it again, room 13, though it no longer existed. A chill ran down his spine. He felt it, something was watching him. Something beyond time and reason. And in that moment, Raphael realized this premonition was only the beginning of a nightmare far worse than he could imagine. Raphael's heart pounded as he rushed through the hospital corridors, the cold fluorescent lights flickering above him like a warning beacon. The weight of his premonition pressed down harder with every step. He had seen the generator fail, he had to stop it before the nightmare became reality. The emergency generator room was just ahead, its heavy metal door slightly ajar, as if inviting him to confront the looming disaster. Inside, the dim hum of machinery was undercut by a faint crackling sound. Raphael's fingers flew over the control panel, eyes scanning the system logs for any sign of malfunction. Suddenly, the screens flickered violently, the alarms he had feared roared to life, echoing through the hospital like a siren of doom. A spark erupted near the main unit, sending a flash of light that made Raphael flinch. Without hesitation, he initiated an emergency shutdown, the generator winding down in a slow, groaning protest. His breath came in ragged gasps as the light steadied, the hospital settling into an uneasy calm. Raphael's hands shook, not just from adrenaline, but from a deep, unsettling fear. He had stopped the immediate danger, but the vision still haunted him. There was more to come. As news of the sudden blackout spread, staff rushed to stabilize patients. Among those present was Dr. Elisa Moreno, a sharp-eyed pulmonologist in her early 40s, known for her calm demeanor and unwavering dedication. She found Raphael near the generator room, his face pale and eyes wide with unspoken dread. "What happened?" she asked, concern tightening her voice. "The generator failed, but I shut it down before it took everything with it," Raphael said, swallowing hard. "I saw it happen before it did," like a premonition. Dr. Moreno frowned, skepticism flickering in her eyes. Premonitions aren't exactly scientific, Raphael. He nodded, knowing she was right, yet unable to shake the certainty gnawing at him. I can't explain it. But I'm telling you, this isn't over. Meanwhile, in another wing of the hospital, the patients who had been on life support that night stirred awake, their monitors stabilizing one by one. Among them was an elderly man named Mr. Thompson, recovering slowly but steadily. His daughter, Karen, stood by his bedside, unaware of the storm that had almost struck. The media quickly caught wind of the incident. News outlets ran stories about the mysterious blackout that had spared the hospital from catastrophe thanks to quick-thinking staff. Headlines praised the heroics, but whispers of an inexplicable sixth sense behind the rescue began to circulate online, sparking curiosity and doubt. Back at home, Raphael's calm facade crumbled. The silence of his apartment felt thick, oppressive. Every shadow seemed to twitch, every creak of the floorboards a warning. He couldn't escape the feeling that the darkness he had glimpsed in his vision was creeping closer. He started noticing strange things, objects slightly out of place, unexplained cold spots, and fleeting reflections in mirrors that didn't match his movements. Paranoia took root, twisting his thoughts like vines around a fragile sapling. One evening, as Raphael stared into his computer screen, the reflection showed not only his face but something else. An indistinct figure standing behind him, just out of clear view. He spun around, but the room was empty. Yet the feeling of being watched lingered, a silent echo that followed him wherever he went. Dr. Moreno called him the next day, her voice more serious than before. Raphael, some patients from the blackout night are reporting strange symptoms. Fainting, disorientation. Nothing medical can explain. His stomach tightened. The nightmare wasn't done. The blackout had only been the beginning. Raphael knew one thing with terrifying clarity: the disaster he had stopped was only the first ripple of a much larger wave, and now, the real flight from death had begun. The days following the blackout were shrouded in uneasy calm. Raphael tried to focus on work, but his mind kept circling back to the strange symptoms reported by the patients. One of them was Karen's father, Mr. Thompson, the elderly man who had been stable after the emergency. Raphael had seen him during a brief hospital visit, pale but hopeful. Now, the hope was fading. Late one rainy afternoon, Raphael received a call from Karen. Her voice trembled as she told him that her father had fallen suddenly at home, no clear cause, no warning signs. The paramedics described the accident as bizarre. Mr. Thompson had collapsed, hitting his head in a way that didn't match the severity of his fall. It was almost as if something unseen had pushed him toward death. Raphael's heart sank. This was the first casualty of a nightmare that refused to end. He visited the hospital where Karen waited in a sterile waiting room, her eyes red from crying. The doctor on call spoke softly but with an urgency that pierced Raphael's growing dread. It's unusual. His vital signs were fine yesterday. We're running tests, but it's as if his body just gave up. A chill ran down Raphael's spine. His premonition had warned of death, but not like this, quiet, creeping, impossible to predict. Back at his apartment, Raphael pored over every detail he could find, searching for patterns. The deaths seemed random, yet connected by an invisible thread. The patients saved by his shutdown of the generator were dying in strange, unlikely ways, each accident more bizarre than the last. One slipped on a wet floor that had no water, another suffered a freak electrical shock at home. The list grew, and with it, the crushing weight of inevitability. He shared his fears with Dr. Elisa Moreno, hoping for some rational explanation. She listened, but her skepticism was a thin veil over her own unease. "You're not saying, this is some kind of curse?" "No," Raphael said firmly. "It's more like, death is coming for them. It's like it was postponed, but never stopped." In the shadows of the hospital halls, the whispers grew louder. Nurses exchanged uneasy glances, patients' families murmured about bad luck and fate. Raphael's paranoia blossomed into a desperate urgency. He felt the walls closing in, time slipping away. Late one night, as Raphael worked late in the IT room, a sudden power surge caused the monitors to flicker. In the reflection, he saw it again, the outline of the long-demolished room 13. This time, it was clearer, silent, watching, waiting. A sound echoed from the hallway, a faint creak of a door slowly opening. Raphael's breath hitched. He turned sharply, but saw nothing. Still, the presence lingered, chilling and unmistakable. His eyes darted back to the screens. A message blinked, a warning, or perhaps a taunt: "It's not over." Raphael knew the nightmare had only just begun, and that the first loss was only the first step down a dark, spiraling path from which escape seemed impossible. The hospital felt colder now. Even the usual hum of machinery seemed subdued, as if the very walls were holding their breath. Raphael sat at his cluttered desk, surrounded by patient files, newspaper clippings, and scribbled notes that began to form a grim pattern. Each name, each date, each strange accident mapped onto a timeline that chilled him to the core. He traced a shaky finger along the list. The blackout had saved lives, but only delayed their fate. Death was claiming them one by one, with an eerie precision. And Raphael knew what haunted him most: he could predict who was next. Dr. Elisa Moreno entered the room quietly, her expression tight. "You really believe this is happening? That death is targeting them?" Raphael's eyes were haunted. "I don't just believe it, I see it. Look here." He pointed to the timeline, highlighting the intervals between incidents. "It's like a sequence, a cycle that can't be broken." Elisa frowned, crossing her arms. "If this is true, we need to warn the others." But Raphael shook his head. "They won't listen. They think I'm paranoid. I tried to warn Karen, but she doesn't want to believe that her father's death was anything but an accident." As the day faded into night, Raphael's phone buzzed with a message from a nurse. Another patient on the list had just been found dead, an apparent suicide, but the details didn't add up. The timing was too perfect, the method too strange. It was another domino falling. Raphael's stomach twisted. He rushed to the hospital, arriving just as the emergency team sealed off the room. The sterile corridors felt suffocating, whispers followed him like ghosts. In the reflection of a polished glass door, he glimpsed once again the faint outline of room 13, its walls crumbling, yet its presence undeniable. He rubbed his eyes, but the vision held steady. Frantically, Raphael called Karen. "You have to listen. Whoever's next, Raphael, please, stop," she pleaded. "I can't lose anyone else." But it was too late. The pattern was unstoppable. Elisa's voice came over the phone, trembling. "We lost another patient. The one we thought was safe." Raphael clenched his fists, desperation flooding him. The cold realization hit: the deaths weren't random accidents or medical mysteries, they were the inevitable end of a preordained fate he had glimpsed but couldn't alter. And with that, the clock ticked louder, the silence more oppressive. The shadows deepened. Death was coming for the next, and Raphael could only watch helplessly as the cycle tightened around them. The weight of inevitability pressed down on Raphael's shoulders, but he refused to surrender. He gathered the surviving patients and a few trusted hospital staff in a quiet meeting room, the air thick with tension and fear. Their faces were pale, eyes haunted by the grim reality they all shared. Each one was living on borrowed time. "We have to find a way to stop this," Raphael said, voice low but resolute. "This isn't just bad luck. It's a pattern. Something bigger, something we don't understand yet." Elisa pulled up articles, hospital records, and eerie news reports of strange deaths, odd accidents, unexplained medical emergencies, that mirrored their situation. "There have been cases before," she said quietly, scrolling through headlines. People saved from disasters, only to die mysteriously soon after. The group exchanged nervous glances. Desperation fueled their resolve. Raphael proposed radical ideas. Trying to disrupt the cycle by changing routines, swapping hospital beds, even leaving town temporarily. Some attempts gave fleeting hope. One survivor skipped a scheduled checkup and seemed safe for days, but then a tragic car crash ended their life. Each failure tightened the grip of dread. The survivors clung to fragile hopes, but the shadow of death stalked them relentlessly. One night, as Raphael pored over a map of the city dotted with dates and locations, a sudden knock jolted him. It was Karen, eyes wide with panic. "My mother, she's next." Raphael's breath hitched. Time was slipping through their fingers. They raced against the clock, trying to reach Karen's mother before the pattern claimed another victim. But fate was merciless. The moments stretched agonizingly thin as traffic snarled, phones went unanswered, and the city's cold fog crept in. At the hospital, Elisa sat alone, the sterile silence shattered by a sudden, chilling scream. Raphael's phone buzzed, a message. Another death. The cycle was relentless, and despite their best efforts, the survivors were losing ground. Panic blossomed into chaos. Raphael's heart pounded as he realized the fight wasn't just to survive, it was to outwit a force beyond comprehension. The race against time had become a desperate sprint into darkness, with the haunting question lingering, could they ever truly escape Room 13's curse? The hospital corridors were nearly silent now. Most of the survivors were gone, each claimed by bizarre, tragic ends that defied logic and left no room for coincidence. Raphael, hollow-eyed and trembling, knew the truth, the list was almost complete. Only he and Elisa remained. She sat beside him in the dimly lit IT room, her hands shaking as she scanned surveillance footage from the last 2 weeks. "There has to be something we missed," she whispered. "Some clue, some flaw in the sequence." Raphael stared at the old monitors, their flickering glow casting uneasy shadows on the wall. "There's no flaw," he said numbly. "It's a design. Perfect and cruel." On a whim, he checked the hospital's archived blueprints. Room 13 had been demolished over a decade ago. Yet somehow, digital echoes of it still haunted the system. Anomalies in security footage. Power spikes. Ghost files in the mainframe labeled Q13. "This room doesn't exist," Raphael said, voice tight with fear, "but it's still here. Watching." Elisa looked up. What if it's not the room itself, but what happened inside it? Raphael's mind raced. The generator failure, the premature shutdown, the lives he saved. What if Room 13 had been the original point of rupture? A place where death had been cheated, and now, it demanded balance. He turned to Elisa. "We have to go back to where it started." "But there's nothing left," she said. "It's just an empty wall now." Raphael pulled a flash drive from his pocket. "Not if it still exists in the system." Together, they descended into the abandoned sublevel beneath the west wing, where Room 13 had once stood. The hallway was sealed off, but Raphael used an old override code to gain access. The lights flickered on in slow, stuttering waves, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. They reached the sealed wall. And then, impossibly, the system beeped, recognizing Room 13. A doorway shimmered in the reflection of Raphael's monitor. A doorway that didn't exist. Elisa gasped. "Do you see that?" "Yes," Raphael whispered. "I think it wants me to go in." Elisa held his arm. "If you go through that door, you might not come back." He looked at her with a calm finality. "I was the first. Maybe I have to be the last." She stepped back, and Raphael walked toward the reflection, toward the outline of a door only he could see. As he reached for the invisible handle, the lights behind him blinked out. One by one. The silence returned. Elisa waited, but Raphael never came back. Weeks passed. The death stopped. The curse seemed broken. But in the hospital's IT system, deep in the root directories no one ever accessed, one file remained open. It looped endlessly, showing a dark room with peeling walls and a single flickering bulb. The title read, Q13, Active. Months passed. The hospital resumed its rhythm, patients came and went, machines hummed softly, and the echo of tragedy faded into rumor. Raphael was listed as missing. Elisa gave her statement, requested leave, and disappeared from public view. To most, the nightmare had ended. But something didn't sit right. Elisa had moved across the country, changed her name, and avoided anything remotely connected to the past. She settled in a quiet apartment, far from cities, far from hospitals. She rarely spoke. She rarely slept. One rainy evening, as thunder rolled in the distance and the lights flickered in her modest kitchen, Elisa opened her laptop for the first time in weeks. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Something pulled her to check the hospital's archive system one last time, just to be sure. She logged in using an old encrypted key Raphael had given her. The screen blinked once. Twice. And then it appeared. File restored, Q13 active. Been last modified. 2 minutes ago she froze. A low hum filled the room. Not from her laptop, but from behind her. She turned slowly. The kitchen light buzzed. The air grew still. In the reflection of the microwave door, she saw it. A room. Cracked tiles. Rusted bed rails. A flickering bulb overhead. Room 13. But she was in her apartment. The reflection vanished. The screen turned black. A faint whisper echoed through the room, not loud, not clear, just present. Elisa, her breath caught. She grabbed her phone, heart pounding, and ran for the door. But when she touched the handle, it clicked back into place, locked. Automatically. From the inside. The microwave let out a sharp ding. The lights went out. A scream tried to rise from her throat but never made it past her lips. And then. Silence. In a quiet hospital on the other side of the country, a nurse on the night shift paused as her screen flickered. An unfamiliar file opened by itself. A looped video began playing. Footage of a dimly lit room with peeling walls and a single chair. A shadow crossed the screen. Then nothing. Connection lost. Because death waits. It watches. It adapts. It never forgets a debt. And it never leaves a survivor. Not for long. A soft sound. A flicker. A breath stolen from the air. And the cycle was whole again.